Hello, welcome to this video where I'm going to give you, hopefully, all the information that you need about the upcoming community day of Rowlet and its evolution, Decidueye. For the unaware amongst us, we have a community day on the 6th of January between 2 and 5 p.m. local time. I'm going through the blog just a couple seconds real quick. I will post the link of the blog in the description as well. Now, what do you need to know about this? 6th of January, as I said, 2 to 5 p.m. local time. Rowlet will appear more frequently and it can be shiny. Most important about it, it learns Frenzy Plant if you evolve it in this time window, I believe, till about 5 hours after the event. Frenzy Plant is one of the best charge attacks in the game, so you want this on your Decidueye. It's really only for PvP and not so much for raids. There are better grass type attackers, such as Kartana for grass type coverage. And then it also learns Spirit Shackle. This is not a legacy attack, however, so you can teach your Decidueye whenever you want. I will give you the stats and analysis on this soon as well, whatever is important. One thing that definitely stands out there is 3 times starters for catching Pokemon. You don't need Excel Candy because even its Revolution, Dartrix doesn't go Excel in Great League, and then in Master League it's borderline not really good, even in like classic formats. And I think that's most of it. If you're also interested in like showcases or extra bonuses, that will also be there. Now we're going to look into the analysis. The things I will be going through in this analysis is its typing, the comparison of the Decidueye to other Pokemon of the same typing, its moveset, and the ideal IV spreads, including breakpoints, bulk points, and amount of HP that you need. The typing of this Decidueye is pretty unique. It's a grass plus ghost type Pokemon. Now, this is very familiar to another Pokemon that has been in the meta for a while, which is Trevenant. And I think for this analysis, it's best to look at which one is the better and what do they stand out in. So to compare the stats of the Decidueye and Trevenant first, we have the Decidueye on the left and Trevenant on the right. You see that the total stats of these Pokemon are very similar, and that means that their bulk is also similar, or in this case, they are both equally fragile. Trevenant already wasn't known for its bulk, but more for its offense. The Decidueye is very similar in terms of offense and in defense. So that gives you an idea of how bulky your Decidueye likely will be. The Decidueye has 4 fast attacks. I didn't include Razor Leaf on the right here because I think other Pokemon such as Gourgeist or Victory Bell can do way better in that role. However, it does have Magical Leaf, Leafage, and Astonish, all relatively new or buffed. Magical Leaf is more damage focused with 3.3 damage per turn and 3.3 energy per turn. Then Leafage is more energy focused, which I think this fits the Decidueye way more because you want to get to Frenzy Plant or Brave Bird faster. And then Astonish gives a little bit of a ghost type attack roll, but I don't really like that much. And I'm going to show you the other ghost grass type for that, which is Trevenant. Trevenant has Shadow Claw, and it's just a straight up better attack than Astonish it. Trevenant also has Seed Bomb, not that great of a grass type charge attack. It used to be cheaper in energy, making it a really good bait attack, but now it still is, but it's a little bit more expensive. And then Shadow Ball, obviously a attack we all know, very efficient. You can see 1.81 damage per energy. That's a very efficient charge attack, especially if compared to like Seed Bomb. Now, let's take a look at the charge attacks of Decidueye. And the reason why I show you in this order is because I want to show you that Decidueye is just not as good of a ghost type attacker as Trevenant is. Trevenant with Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, tremendous. But then Decidueye with Astonish and Spirit Shackle, you see here that Spirit Shackle is not an efficient charge attack at all. It is cheaper than Seed Bomb is from Trevenant, and it does have a 33% chance to debuff your opponent by 1 stage as defense. So Spirit Shackle it's a ghost type attack to have, it's a bait attack, but it's not the best one. Then it has Frenzy Plant as well. Frenzy Plant, the attack that you kind of need. And if you do, if you don't, you likely want Brave Bird. I think Frenzy Plant plus Brave Bird might be the most optimal attack moveset, but it really depends on what role you want to give your Decidueye. If you put it as safe switch, I would recommend Frenzy Plant Brave Bird for optimal coverage. But if it's like as a lead or a closer, perhaps you do want Frenzy Plant or Spirit Shackle and Brave Bird. I think all 3 attacks are very viable on the Decidueye. But the main thing that I think the Decidueye stands out and where Trevenant lacks is because you have consistent grass type coverage. And that actually allows you for a much better matchup against Pokemon like Umbreon, which you still lose, and Lickitung, where you actually win the Zero Shields. So you can see where I'm going with this video. This is really comparing Trevenant, already a very good staple in its typing as the grass and ghost. How good is the Decidueye against Trevenant here? Before I go into the next topic, which is comparing them in the Great League and the Ultra League, I want to thank PvPoke, because that's the website I use the most to make these comparisons, to make these simulations. So if you don't know PvPoke yet, I'll put the link in the description, and you can basically navigate there as well. So for the Great League, I picked a couple Pokemon that I think the Decidueye does better than Trevenant does. One of them is Azumarill. You have a grass fast attack here. I assume you run Leafage, which I think is the more fitting fast attack for the Decidueye. Magical Leaf is also pretty decent. You win the Zero Shields against Dugong. You do better against Diggersby because it doesn't resist your Grass Fast attack, where it does double resist Shadow Claw from Trevenant. You win the 0 shoots against Licky Tongue with a decent Decidueye. You win the 0 and you can win the 1 shoots against the Pelipper. And then Vigoroth isn't as good anymore since it has Rock Slide now, but the Decidueye still does pretty fine with Leafage or Magical Leaf and then Frenzy Plant. One matchup that you will do better in with the Decidueye is Clodsire if you have Magical Leaf, just because it's a little bit more damage dependent, but it might also be IV dependent. Now, these matchups are still bad, but the Decidueye is better in them. One of them is Greedent. Greedent is actually not that bad of a matchup for the Decidueye, but it does outpace you to Crunch. 2 Crunches will take out. On the other hand, though, Frenzy Plant and Leafage hit very well on it. Obstagoon, actually not that bad of a matchup. I believe even winnable for the Decidueye now, whereas Trevenant usually loses the even shield or even sometimes with a shield down. Sableye, you hit just a little bit harder there. It's still generally a losable matchup. However, you land like a Frenzy Plant, you can shield farm down. Toxapex, just a little bit better because you hit a little bit harder, but still not that great because Toxapex bulk. And then Umbreon, obviously a terrible matchup, but you have Frenzy Plant instead of C-Bomb, which just hits straight up better. But it's not all just straight up good. These are matchups that are worse for the Decidueye than Trevenant does. One of them is Altaria. Altaria basically hard walls you, double resists your fast attack. And then you have Brave Bird, perhaps, or Spirit Shackle. They just don't do well enough to win against Altaria. Same for Cresselia. The Decidueye can actually lose those in many scenarios. You might need a bulk point for that. Deoxys, a winnable matchup, just worse. Frostlass, a worse matchup because you don't deal super effective Shadow Claw damage. Medicham, you can lose the 2 shields if you don't have enough HP because an Ice Punch will knock you out. Registeel resists your grass type coverage, so that's where Trevenant does stand out, and it stands out the most against Skarmory, whereas the Decidueye just has nothing. Trevenant does do better there. Toxicroak, also, you need a very high attack, the Decidueye, to win the 1 shot consistently. It can actually get to a Mud Bomb and a Shadow Ball otherwise, and then Victreebel basically hard walls you. You might have Brave Bird to take it out in 1 charge attack, but it's still iffy. Now, in Ultra League, the Decidueye is far less IV dependent than it is in Great League. However, it only picks up so few matchups more than Trevenant does. Greninja is one of them. You do much better there because it doesn't resist your fast attack like it does with Trevenant. Gyarados, pretty fragile nature, and you outpace to the Frenzy Plant, which makes it much better for the Decidueye. Tapu Fini, Trevenant already should win that in most even scenarios, but the Decidueye does even better there because Frenzy Plant just hits straight up better, plus you have Leafage. And then Walrein the Decidueye can actually win the 0 and the 1 shoots, but it also depends on IVs on both Pokemon. It still does better than Trevenant does there. These matchups become better for the Decidueye in Ultra League as well. Most of them are not that winnable, but they're better. One of them is Golisopod. Trevenant does worse there, but the Decidueye can actually tie or even win in the 1 shoots depending on IVs on both Pokemon. Greedent is the same story as Great League. Not the best matchup, but you do better than Trevenant does. Same for Obstagoon. I believe in Ultra League, Obstagoon does win that, however, because you have more HP, so you can live those Frenzy Plant a little bit better. Pidgeot is a special one. Pidgeot is not a great matchup, let that be clear, but you have Brave Bird instead of like C-Bomb or Shadow Ball to hit back. So that's why I did put Pidgeot there. And in fact, if Pidgeot, for some reason, Brave Birds in the 0 shoots, you can actually win that. Or I believe that's the 1 shoot. In the 1 shoot, you can win that actually. And then Umbreon's still terrible, but you have Frenzy Plant to hit back. But I don't think the Decidueye is any better than Trevenant in Ultra League. Look at the matchup that it actually drops over Trevenant does, because Ghost is such a good offensive coverage in Ultra League. That's exactly what the Decidueye is dropping here. Cobalion, Cresselia, Deoxys, they become much worse. They're not the worst matchups, but they are not as good anymore. Dragonite, terrible. Giratina, even with Spirit Shackle, not great. Registeel, same story as in Great League, resist your charge attacks now. Skeledirge, we don't want to talk about that, it just burns you. Alolan Sandslash, I didn't put it on Great League because I think Frenzy Plant still hits very hard and it's a losable matchup regardless, just like with Trevenant. But here, it has more HP, it does not care that much about your Frenzy Plant. Toxicroak, same story, can land a Shadow Ball, it's not great. And opposing Trevenant is also worse because that's super effective Shadow Claw on you. And then Venusaur, you need to land a Brave Bird. It's an iffy matchup, and for Trevenant, it's not that bait dependent. So now that we have explored the function that the Decidueye has, as opposed to Trevenant, the last thing we'll take a look at is the IV spread, or the ideal IV spread of the Decidueye and notable bulk points and break points that I found myself. This graph, I also posted this on Twitter, and this is where I go in depth on some of these important stats. On the left, you see the typing of the Decidueye and what IV spread I recommend. This is like a very high defense and very high HP IV spread that I recommend, simply because you hit a lot of important ones, and the less important ones is where you hit breakpoints, such as Clodsire or Toxicroak, which is on the graph as well. But then you would drop a lot of other important ones. So that's why I think you ideally want a very high IV spread. The recommended moveset I personally think is Leafage, Frenzy Plant, and then you can either pick Brave or Spirit Chickle. I think that Leafage is a little bit better than Magical Leaf because you want to rely on getting to Frenzy Plant as soon as you can. So one of the more notable breakpoints that I found was Toxicroak. If you have 130 attack on your Toxicroak, then it won't get to 2 charge attacks in the 1 shields, basically because it faints with the Shadow Ball or the Sludge Bomb at 1 HP. The next one I think is very important, Bastiodon. You need about 117 defense to guarantee a Smackdown bulk point, and even the IV spread I recommended doesn't get this, but against most good IV Bastiodon, you do get this, because the IV spread that or the guaranteed bulk point that I have here is against like a very offensive weighted Bastiodon. That's what no one runs. Against Lickitung, you kind of just need a good Decidueye. Not even good, but like above average. Because you need some defense, so power up doesn't do as much. And then you need enough HP to survive the following legs afterwards. So I recommend like over 113 HP there. Cresselia is an easy bulk point to reach, because the IV spread I recommended goes 4 defense over this. It's not very difficult to reach that bulk point there. Some offensive way that the Decidueye might even reach this. And you kind of need this to win the 2 shields. I believe this includes shielding baits as well. The next bulk point I think is a very important one, because if you get this almost 117 defense, you guarantee a bulk point against Pelipper, which allows you to win the 1 shields consistently. A very important one in my opinion. And then Medicham, similar to Lickitung, you need some HP, otherwise the Ice Punch will knock you, the third Ice Punch will knock you out, and that's not great. This is going straight Frenzy Plant against Medicham. Generally a good matchup, but if you like that HP, it actually is quite disappointing. There are some more notable matchups that I noticed as well. With Leafage, you kind of need a decent Decidueye with some defense and HP, otherwise you lose Galarian Stunfisk in the 0 shields. You just faint 2 Mud Shots plus 2 Rock Slide. Clothesire is an interesting one. If you have a very high tech Decidueye, you get a break point. If you have a very high defense Decidueye, you reach a bulk point. So it kind of evens out in that scenario. Now, Clothesire is generally not that positive of a matchup. I believe you lose all even shields if it has Poison Sting with Sludge Bomb, but if it has Stone Edge, you should win the 0 shields, and the 2 shields depends on the Clothesire IVs. If it's a very good Clothesire, it will barely win the 2 shields. If it's bad, then the Decidueye will win. Now for Magical Leaf, again, I don't think this is the best grass fast attack for the Decidueye, but I did notice a couple other useful things. If you have a pretty attack weighted Decidueye, you can actually knock out Azumarill before it can land an Ice Beam on you, which is pretty wicked, but you give up other important stats and bulk points for that. Galarian Stunfisk, same story as Leafage. You need some defense and HP, otherwise you just faint too much shots and Rock Slides before you even get to your second Frenzy Plant. Gligar is not a matchup you win, but if you have a bad Decidueye, then you don't even get to a Frenzy Plant in the 0 shield. This is against regular Gligar, so you kind of want a good Decidueye to at least deal some damage. Poliwrath is a matchup you win, albeit a little bit close in the 1 shields, because it outpaces you to those Icy Winds. However, if you have a breakpoint, which requires a very high attack Decidueye, you win the 1 shields very cleanly, because it won't even get there, you just farm it down. There are, however, 2 matchups where Magical Leaf is better, and it is against Clothesire. You actually win the 0 shields and the 2 shields against Poison Sting Sludge Bomb movesets, and you win the 2 shields against Cresselia. The 2 shields against Future Sight Cresselia depends on the HP of Cresselia, because you can actually win that as well. Those are the 2 matchups where Magical Leaf is slightly better. Now for Ultra League, the Decidueye is far less IV dependent. The recommended IV spread I have here basically is the rank 1. I also checked the rank 3, which is, I believe, the 0, 15, 15, which perform very equally, and they have one thing in common, which is that they can win Wall Ring depending on the Wall Ring IVs. The moveset here still, I find the same to be recommended, Brave or Spirit Check. I think Spirit Checkle is a little bit better in Ultra League because that ghost coverage is just pretty good. Now for break and bulk points, Steelix depends on the IVs. It cannot be guaranteed. In fact, the rank 1 doesn't even have this, so you need an even more defense weighted Decidueye, something like 0, 15, 1 or something. Then Cresselia is a pretty big one, and the rank 1 does reach this. In fact, you can drop a little bit in defense if you want, and by taking 1 less damage against Cresselia, you win the 2 shields consistently, even if it baits Grass Knots. Then Goliath Support is not a great matchup, but depending on the Goliath Support IVs, you can win the 1 shields, otherwise you tie it, and you don't even need Brave Bird for it. With Brave Bird, you can actually win both the 0 and the 1 shields, because it will do so much damage. It's super effective. And then Wall Rain is also very IV dependent on the side of the Wall Rain. As you see, you barely hit that breakpoint with your Decidueye at the rank 1. But it's a tough one to get, really, and it's not very reliable. If you win it, or if you get it, you win very closely, like by 3 HP. So that was basically my analysis for the Decidueye. I don't think it's a must-have, but it's triple Stardust bonus on that community day. And it has use. It's not like the worst. It does some things better than Trident does. Specifically, that Lickitung matchup, I like that one a lot. So I would recommend to get one, but like don't count it too much or don't feel too bummed if you don't get that ideal IV spread on it. I don't even know if I will. This was the video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.